Beef League post-draft analysis and week 2 power rankings. We're going to go through each team, go through everything they've drafted, and go ahead and assign an arbitrary rank to them. Going from 10 to 1, who we think has the least overall best team, to who we believe has the best overall team. We're joined with MorningLolz right now, who's going to be my guest commentator at the moment. Say what's up, School.
Yeah, what's up, guys? It's MorningLolz here, and yeah, you pretty much heard him. Let's get right into this, I guess.
All right, we're going to dive right into what we consider the 10th place team, so to speak. We got the downtown Greninjas, coached by Shuckle.
Beauty. Great start.
Major L's with that. All right. He drafted Volcanion, Celebi, Shuckle, Guzzlord, Gardevoir, Gastrodon, Azelfs, Metagross, Como-o, and his Z crystal user is Tapu Koko. And I guess I probably should have explained this ahead of time. With the Roshi House Beach League, how the draft works is it's 11 mons total. It is one Z crystal holder per team, and no megas. No megas are allowed in the league for this season. Trying out a whole little new thing, I guess. And it's free drafts, so you might see what you might be used to, like GBA thing or part of season 7, where it's tiers assigned for Pokemon. Well, just like in season 7, those have been tossed completely out the window. This is complete free draft, and normally, leagues have about 12 coaches. This league only has 10, keeping it short. About 9 weeks of a regular season, then going to playoffs. So diving back into it, yeah, the Z holder is Tapu Koko on his team, and let's go on to why we believe this is the least prepared team, so to speak. I don't want to diss the team, but
No. It's just looking at the teams and kind of giving a bit of a presumption as to what went well, what didn't went well, and patterns as to how the team was built, pretty much.
Yeah, and on that note, also be aware that it's completely week 0. We are only looking at the teams on paper. We're not considering the coaches in any way, shape, looking at the team. Obviously, mons to different effectiveness. We're just looking at the team's effectiveness on paper. So keep that in your mind as we're going through this. So no discredit to any of the coaches. We're just looking at your teams in complete black and white on paper, what they can do, and relative compared to other teams.
Yeah, pretty much unbiased opinions. So looking at this team really quick here, what I personally notice is a decently bulky team. Looking at the Metagross, the Gastrodons, and the Shuckle. However, we do see a bit of overlap in typing. Perhaps, as far as I've heard, maybe some mons that were picked a bit early, but that is, of course, objective. What is your input on this team?
I'm right with you there, man. Like, if there's one thing this team has going for it, it's moderate bulk. But one huge lacking thing is the versatility when it comes to offense. He has, in reality, he has 2 decently hard-hitting Pokemon when it comes to sheer offense. I mean, 3 if you want to count Metagross. He has Volcanion and Tapu Koko, which are immediate threats. But other than that, like, Metagross is not one of those mons that you just look at and you're just like, wow, I need to really prep hard for this thing.
Exactly.
It's incredibly lackluster when it comes to sheer offense. And speed is like there's a ridiculous speed gaps outside of Tapu Koko and Azelfs. Those are the only things that are above base 100 speed on his team.
Another thing to point out also is this team does have a good use of hazards. However, I do not think it has any method of clearing hazards such as defog or rapid spin. So I feel like this team is going to be easily set up upon if planned for. But it does have access to things such as stealth rocks or spikes or whatnot. So it could make work in that sense. However, used against it, I don't think it has access to any way of clearing it.
Very accurate points. Yeah, it has no form of hazard removal, which is a very critical thing, especially in league format. It's easily taken advantage of. Again, especially when you're relying on let's say a Volt Switching Tapu Koko. If you have no form of hazard removal, that thing's going to get ate up alive time it switches in. Volcanion being a fire type gets completely decimated by rocks, but again, no way to soak those things up. He has. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong team. He has one poison type to set up the toxic spikes, but other than that, everything else is getting chewed alive by those hazards.
Right. Another thing to kind of point out is I do see a bit of a ground weakness, if I'm not mistaken, with the Volcanion, the Roserade. We also see the Metagross and the Tapu Koko, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I see a bit of a ground weakness as well. I'm not sure what else to really point out in terms of positives or negatives here.
It's really is the Celebi and arguably a Celeborn, but a Celeborn isn't exactly a Pokemon per se, so it's not really something you want to switch into an Earthquake.
Right. So in terms of this team overall, it may be ranked at 10th, but as an unbiased opinion, it's still a good draft. It's still got some components you could work with. The strong points I would say would be hazard setups, and it does have individually some decent mons here and there, but there is a pretty decent speed gap, lack of clearing hazards on the field, and a bit of questionable picks, such as maybe the Shuckle being a bit high up, but that's subjective. Shuckle is still a good mon without a doubt.
Really lackluster synergy too when you really look at it. I mean, he has Volt Turn and 3 mounts. He has Tapu Koko that has Volt Switch and U-Turn, and then he has Celebi which learns U-Turn if I'm correct, and then Celebi learns U-Turn. But outside of that, nothing to really get much momentum or take advantage of switch-ins and things like that. Recovery is something that's lackluster in his team as well. He has Tapu Koko gets Roost, I believe. Gatrs gets Recover, if I'm not mistaken. Celebi gets Recover. Then other than that, I don't believe anything he has natural recovery. Maybe Roserade gets Synthesis. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. But other than that, it's just relying on rest, which is terrible in League format unless you're running like some kind of ridiculous where it's really gimmicky. It's not something you're gonna really rely on. Rest is not the most reliable form of recovery.
No, exactly. It's easy to plan for, and generally that's pretty much how this team is going to go down. Of course, we never know until the season starts. We'll see if he can adapt with the picks he made. Let's move on to number 9 now with the Golden State Golducks.
Yep, Golden State Golducks, coached by Phantom and Golduck. We will have all their teams on the screen below as this video progresses. But he has drafted Tapu Fini, Alolan Muck, Donphan, Araquanid, Amoonguss, Mimikyu, Magnezone, Passimian, I want to believe his name is.
Yeah.
Salazzle, Kangaskhan, and Mesprit.
So things to point out with this team, interesting cores to begin with. Looking at the Salazzle, the Amoonguss, and the Araquanid, as well as the Tapu Fini. We do see this team has some interesting bulk in the Donphan. The Magnezone can take a few hits as well, and the Amoonguss is a decent wall. However, some may say it's easier to plan for. We also see 3 poison types standing out, as well as Salazzle being a good mon, respectively. However, league format, it's easier to plan for with the shenanigans. Also, a bit of a disappointment seeing Kangaskhan instead of Mega Kangaskhan. It would have been much better. However, Kangaskhan is still a good mon in itself. The one mon that I do see standing out as the offensive threat on this team would be the Tapu Fini if set up, or the Magnezone. However, besides that, do you have any points to say?
I believe Mimikyu has potential to be like a threat offensively. It has Disguise as his ability. You get a free Swords Dance up, put a Focus Sash on it maybe. Something along those lines. It has a free Focus Sash, what am I saying? Or just a free sub.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's still incredibly gimmicky. It's not like it's naturally bulky or anything. It has 2 good stab moves, or my old priority in Shadow Sneak, but it's easily countered in league format. Again, if you're prepping for it, it's not too hard to work around. Amoonguss is a solid wall, but again, in league format, it's incredibly lackluster. It's predictable. It's really how to say this? Straightforward with what it does.
Yeah.
It has one thing that it does.
Yeah, pretty much. It sums up generally.
It's, again,
Feel like
something that's relatively high. On that, Araquanid as a Zmon user, Zmon Z Crystal user, is questionable. Is mildly questionable. I mean, like, he has Tapu Fini on his team, or even Magnezone that could be arguably a better Z Crystal user. I mean, I get what he's going for. He wants, like, Araquanid and hit is pretty hard when it gets going with the liquidation. And it's what's this ability called again?
I believe it's called Water Bubble. Don't quote me on that though, but I think it's Water Bubble.
It's pretty hard, and it's just really, underwhelming draft altogether. Like it has things going for it. It has Fire Water Grass synergy. It has Volt Switch. It has U-turn. It has Simeon, I believe. It has mild hazards and stealth rocks. And I'm not too sure if Salazzle gets toxic spikes or not.
I am not sure about that. I do know, however, it does have the poison shenanigans, so I don't think it's as much of an issue when looking at Salazzle. Just generally with this team, just to point out, it's just maybe like a little lack of offensive threats per se. It does have some interesting components here and there, but overall, I think it's just a lack of offense, to be honest.
Which you may not always get, and even if you do, like, there's no guarantee it lives the following hit, which is like its biggest like downfall. Donphan, I believe it has 120 physical attack, but it has, I guess for a wall, it has a mildly good move pool, but not versatile enough to the point where like it's considered an offensive threat, especially considering its lackluster speed. And on that note, it's a relatively slow team actually. I think the only thing above base 100 on this entire team is Salazzle.
That is a good point, yeah.
He has speed control, I believe, with Mesprit, his Thunder Wave, Magnezone, but other than that, like it's just, it has noticeable downfalls. It doesn't have a drag type, which is another big thing. There's no Dragon Steel Fairy Core, unfortunately. So all these basic elements that go into a good league team is just missing some of those fundamental parts.
Yeah, that honestly pretty much sums it up, to say the least. That's why it lands at number 9 in our list. Let's go ahead and move on to the Aberdeen Azelfs, coached by Coach Darude. I believe you know Coach Darude a bit more than I do.
Oh, yeah. Multiple leagues with Darude, real great battler. But unfortunately, his team falls relatively shorter down on the list here. And again, no discredit to him as a coach, no discredit to any of these coaches. We are just looking at these teams just in purely black and white on paper order, like just purely what they can do on paper compared to one another.
Exactly.
And you'll see his team build Zygarde, Venomoth as a Z crystal holder. He has Galvantula, forgive me, Chandelure, Serena, I believe their name is, Miltank, Manshroud, Fat Pink Fairy,
Aromatisse, yeah. Does that cover everything? Yeah.
Alright, let's just, get into the element in the room with Hoop Unbound. It was allowed in this league this season. I predict it will be banned with the good news at the end of the season. Its offensive stacks are absolutely out of this world. I believe it's 160 base physical attack and 170 base special attack.
That is correct.
80 HP, 80 speed, 130 special defensively.
Yep, that's right.
The real lackluster physical defense at only 60.
Yeah, I think this team pretty much lives and dies with Hoop Unbound. Looking at the rest of it, he does have some interesting mons here and there, such as the Celesteela, I believe that's how it's pronounced, as is Ultra Beast.
Yep, and Celesteela, it's good as a wall. It can even be an offensive threat if it gets a Atomize, I believe is the...
Yep, that's right.
And obviously with Beast Boost, EV enough to the point where its special attack will go up if you were to take out a Mon. And at that point, it becomes a threat with like Flamethrower or Air Slash or even Heavy Slam or Flash Cannon. And, it's nothing to really sleep over. It's definitely not. And it has Zygarde and lets know right now that, obviously, Power Construct is banned. That is, we aren't going to deal with a perfect form, 100% Zygarde or anything like that.
Absolutely.
But 2% Zygarde has very little switch-ins due to 1,000 arrows hitting everything. But then once you get past those 3 Mons, the Hoopa Unbound, the Celesteela, and the Zygarde, it's just everything becomes mildly underwhelming.
That is correct. However, one thing to point out is this team does have a decent amount of hazard control with the Miltank with the Stealth Rocks. We got the Cloyster with the Spikes if it chooses to do so. We do have the Sticky Web Galvantula. A bit of a downside also would have been that if Zygarde had access to Stealth Rocks, that would help. However, it does not, which one may think at first place. It does have decent speed as well with the Galvantula and the commonly scarfed Chandelure. However, that is easy to plan for if you look into it. It does have access to priority as well with the Cloyster and the Mienshao. Looking at his cores once more, we do see the Celesteela, the Zygarde, and the Aromatiz as the ones that stand out in terms of the Dragon Fairy Steel. And if we look at his Water, Fire, Grass, we see Chandelure, we see Tsurina, and we see the Cloyster.
And on that note, it's just the Fire, Water, Grass core is mildly underwhelming, and that they don't do a good job at really just being effective at each other. There's a lack of synergy among the team. Serena in itself is a solid Pokemon. Drop Quick Kick is a very funny move. I'm a real big fan of Serena just individually. I think it's a real cute, gimmicky Pokemon. But my biggest issue when I look at this team outside of like the lack of synergy is like you just look at it and you can tell it's just going to be one of those teams where like the same 2 or 3 Pokemon are just going to come every game. Like he's going to bring Hoopa Unbound practically every game. He's going to bring Celesteela practically every game. He's going to bring Zygarde every practical game. And then everything else just falls few and short in between. Like, you're not giving him bring Aromatiz every game. And short praise to Aromatiz and Miltank. I didn't think about this far, but he has 2 different clerics on his team. 2 different things that get Heal Bell, which is Heal Bell and Aromatherapy in Aromatiz's case, which is relatively nice. But, I mean, not a whole lot to say about it. It's a really lackluster, underwhelming team after you get past those 3 first initial drafts. Venomoth as a Z Crystal holder is questionable. I don't see the logic when you draft a Cuba Unbound and don't make that thing your Z Crystal holder, especially considering it's you would basically be getting a free kill every time that thing comes in and hits you with the Z move. Like that's
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, it kind of ups Venomoth's usage. It kind of makes it a bit more unpredictable in that sense that he'll maybe want to bring it when the opposite trainer may not be planning for that, as well as Aromatiz having some sort of utility with its cleric usage. But you did mention this team may become a bit redundant after a few weeks. We'll see the same Mons coming back, but that's just on paper. We don't know what the trainer is really going to do once everything starts.
Itself is a good Pokemon. Anything with Sleep Powder and the Quiver Dance is a threat, but it's just, again, it's one of those things where it's incredibly situational. Like, no one's going to look at Venomoth and say, yeah, that thing's coming every week. Same thing can be said about, I mean, let's look at setup on his team. Like, he has a relatively good setup. Hoopa Unbound gets Nasty Plot, which makes it terrifying even more so. Zygarde obviously gets Dragon Dance and Cold Boil, both of 2. Does Mashao get Boca? I believe he gets Boca.
Yes, I do think he does, yes.
Yeah, but the Glacier obviously is known for a Shell Smash set, but he has good setup, but it's just you're looking at it, and that's what I see. I see just the team that's going to be Hoopa Unbound, Celesteela, Zygarde, plus 3 mounts every week. And, hopefully he proves me wrong. I like Darude as a coach. I like him as a person. I've known him for a while now. Been in multiple leagues with him. I'm sure he'll prove me wrong. I'm sure he'll be a top-tier coach in the league. But just on paper, the team is relatively underwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all those points. We'll just have to see what happens until it starts. But for now, he remains at number 8 in the list. Moving on to El Paso, the Scuba Steban coach.
Yep. Man, all right. His draft is interesting. It was really hard for us to really peg this down. He drafts Skarmory, Porygon 2, Terrakion, Magearna, Flygon, Rotom, Keldeo, Gengar, Whimsicott, Rhianniclus, and his Z Crystal Holder is Thundurus T.
Yeah, a bit of an interesting draft over here. What I do see standing out is the Terrakion as the offensive threat on this team, as well as the Thundurus T. We do see a bit of annoying mons around in this team as well, such as the Gengar, which is no longer necessarily as strong as it was in the past. However, it is still very good. Whimsicott can definitely be annoying with its utility, as well as a Rhianniclus who sets up on you. It does have access to steel types, being the Skarmory and the Magearna, who could be walls as well. The Flygon is an interesting pick for the Dragon type. This does grant him an immunity to Electric, which his team doesn't necessarily need, but is good as utility. The Rotom Heat could be a decent threat, but it is weak to hazards, in which this team does dish out hazards. However, in terms of removal, I believe it may not have as many. I think it just has to rely on Skarmory's defog, if I'm correct.
Unless he wants to be that guy and run defog Flygon, props to him if he does that. It's just not. Not as much reason to run that as opposed to defog Skarmory. It's a lot more reliable.
Yeah, you'd have to go off the rails for that one a bit, but we've seen weirder things.
Yeah, it's league format. I guess anything is possible.
Yeah.
But he has, offensively speaking, again, like Terrakion is going to be the premier physical threat when it comes to offense on his team. He's definitely not lacking in special offensive threats. I mean, like, he has Thundurus Theory, he has Magearna, he has Keldeo, he has Gengar. Like, he has all these premier OU and above, like, special threats. But again, outside of those, like, he's lacking in pure physical effectiveness. I mean, like, he has Flygon if he wants to run that route, but base 100 attack is just nothing too special. You got to really slap a Life Orb or a Choice Band on Flygon if you want it to be like a mild offensive threat. And that's really it. I mean, like, I guess if you want to be that guy, you could run a Swords Dance Skarmory, but like, that's very unlikely.
Yeah, it's not going to happen very much, but anything can happen in League format. It's just a very specially based team. He's probably going to be riding on Terrakion a lot if I were to predict that. However, Terrakion does have a wide array of holes, and it's just up to him to balance that with the rest of the team.
Oh yeah, hazard. Like, he has, again, like you said, he has good hazards. I mean, he has spikes and stealth rocks, multiple ones. Spikes with Skarmory independently, but stealth rocks is Skarmory, Terrakion. I believe Flygon gets stealth rock as well, but don't quote me on that.
I'm not sure myself, but yeah.
And who cares? And I'm not too sure if Gengar gets toxic spikes or not. And another good thing, I guess, in terms of more hazard removal, since Gengar no longer has Levitate as an ability, he can soak up the toxic spikes. If someone decides to dish them out on his team, he has a good spin blocker in Gengar. He also has Taunt to stop potential defogs, which is nice. But other than that, the team, that's what it is.
Yeah, in essence, that pretty much sums up the El Paso Chimchars and why they land at number 7 in our list. Moving on to number 6, we look at the Las Vegas Vaporeons.
This is when things get a little bit more relatively, I don't want to say balanced, but mildly more interesting, a bit more diverse cast, but still few questionable picks in between the teams. We'll go over his draft right now. It's Zerpentry, Garchomp, Klefki, Tentacool, Shedinja, Suicune, Tornadus Therian, Uxie, Ninetales, Dustox, and his Z Crystal Holders, Tapu Bulu.
Yeah, looking at this team really quick here, we do notice a decent balance in the team. We see Xurkitree, who's definitely a very fast and special offensive threat, however, kind of has one thing going for itself. We do see the Klefki and the Garchomp combo, which is very interesting. It's very annoying to face as well. Gives them a bit of utility and hazards, of course. We do see the Tornadus, which is good for utility, as well as a ground immunity. We see the Suicune, who would generally be used as Crocoon, but we never know what happens in this league. We have Shedinja, which is a bit of a wild card in here. He generally has one thing going for itself, but you never know when it could come into play league format, as well as the Tentacruel, which is a spinner as well as a hazard setter. It can also enjoy Scald shenanigans. And looking at Tapu Bulu, who is also a decent threat on this team. The one thing to point out is the bit of a questionable fire pick of Ninetales. I'm not sure if there were any potentially better options on the board at this time. It just kind of stands out as a bit of a fault in this draft, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure. And onto that note, there's more questionable picks. I mean, the Elf in the room is Shedinja. In league format, there's practically no reason to ever draft Shedinja. I mean, Stealth Rocks are literally the most common move in the game at this point, arguably between that Scald, and then maybe knockoff. Between those three moves, those are the three count moves in like the game, especially in league format. And it's something that's so easily countered that it's just it becomes a complete obscurity to even have it. I mean, Stealth Rocks, and then boom, it's down to its focus as you decide to run something like that. And then again, since it's league format, people intentionally draft different different types of mods. It's all about diversity and versatility. You're not going to go into a team where they're not going to have at least one move or type to deal with Shedinja. It's all about versatility.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Dustox is questionable. I mean, it gets Quiver Dance, which makes almost anything a threat, but looking at its base stats, even with the Quiver Dance, that thing's getting outsped by 50% of the meta.
Yeah, it's a bit of a questionable mon to pick due to that setup option. And looking back at the Shedinja, Stealth Rocks being so prevalent and being such a game changer move that teams rely their team building just based off that one move itself. It could easily shut it down. And those three mons being Ninetales, Dustox, and the Shedinja do stand out as a bit of the obscure picks in this team. But looking past that, it is a generally quick team in some senses with Xurkitree and Garchomp. But beyond those, I think Tornadus also should be recognized in that category. But beyond those, it is a below average speed team as far as I could tell.
The only things above base 100 on his team are Garchomp and Tornadus Therian. I think Xurkitree's base speed is only 79 or 80.
Is it really? I thought it was... Oh, my mistake then. All right. We'll throw on a scarf and then that corrects it. But besides that, he does have access to some good priority with the prankster Klefki to compensate as well.
Yeah, prankster. That's and again onto the fire water grass course. Just between I'm gonna say Suicune instead of Tentacruel. There's Suicune, Tapu Bulu, and Ninetales. Again with Ninetales, I know for a fact, and spoilers. I mean, I don't know if I said this at the beginning or not, but I am also a coach in the league. I know that there are better fire types available for him at this moment. And he could use another issue with the team is he's missing a go-to threatening attacker outside limited moves, and he needs something else to be immediately impactful. And if he's looking for a fire type, I mean, there's things or just any kind of threat Emboar could be considered a premier threat when it comes to league format. I mean, it's reckless. Emboar is a monster. There's very little switches. The only thing that really switches into a well Emboar is like a Latias trigger, specifically EV to take it on.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much.
There's just still a wide pool of fire type Pokemon or Pokemon in general that are more best suited for his team than Ninetales or Dustox or Shedinja.
Yeah, a few questionable moves, but the team does have its traits that stand out a bit. But we'll have to see how it does as it lands 6th in this draft. Moving on to number 5, the Fort Lauderdale for alligators, or gators from that matter.
Coached by Glacier. And moving on to his lineup, he drafted Manaphy, Latios, Fortress, Alolan Marowak, Alolan Ninetales, Tyranitar, Breloom, Ambipom, Nidoking, Ditto, and his Z crystal user is Thundurus Incarnate.
Very, very interesting team. This is pretty much where, in my opinion, we start to see the bigger threats of this draft kind of stand out a bit more, with notably the Manaphy, the Latios, the Tyranitar, the Nidoking could definitely be a wild card in there too, as well as 2 Alolans, which does amuse me a bit. Well, as I see that there, the Thundurus Eye is very good as well. Notably, we do see the Ditto in there, which could also act as a way to put off the opponent. You cannot stay in or set up on that. You don't know what's going to happen to it. There is some good priority on this team as well. Notably the Breloom, the Ambipom. We do see the Fortress as a good wall, and with the utility of the Volt Switch. However, beyond that, I do not really see anything stand out as a wall as much as for Fortress.
That is true. He lacks what I special wall. Like he lacks a wall that is just the go-to special wall. Like, I mean, you could arguably call Manaphy that, because, it's one of those base 100 across the board Vaporeons that happens and comes across almost every generation now. So, EV correctly, that thing could be a moderately well-crafted special wall. But,
yeah.
The issue with Manaphy is it lacks effective recovery. So, it's not exactly the best thing that you would want to use as a wall. Alolan Marowak could be a solid physical wall. Fortress, obviously, is a physical wall, so there's not much synergy between those two. And that's basically it. I mean, you can always try to run Assault Vest Tyranitar, but at that point, you're not really using Tyranitar to its full capability. And it's definitely not something you want to bring every week.
Exactly.
So he's lacking. He's lacking what I'd call real effective defensives. Like offensively, he has a real presence. Again with Manaphy, that thing sets up on you. It's basically GG after that.
Yeah.
Latios, obviously being Latios, it has 130 special attack and 110 speed.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. Things like Calm Mind, it has attack stat as well. So just Dragon Dance or Calm Mind, it's plop some Soul Dew on it, which is not banned in this league if I remember correctly.
Oh boy.
Or even just a Life Orb. It's hitting pretty hard. Tyranitar is obviously Tyranitar. It's hitting hard physically. Another thing that's slept on is Alolan Marowak with Rockhead.
Yep, that's right.
Run, yeah, that thing with the Flare Blitz, it's hitting holes and not taking any recoil. Like it hits hard, especially with the Thick Glove. Like that thing, Like I was watching some Showdown earlier, just battles. Like that thing hits hard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Technician and Ambipom Technician. Priority with both of them with Mach Punch and Fake Out, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
Also hit hard. Sierra Force Nidoking hits hard, and Ditto was basically just living anti-setup. Like you set up with a team or against a team that has a Ditto, and they come with obviously the Choice Scarf shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
They have the potential to counter sweep you. It's a threat.
Yeah, his team is very offensively oriented, and in that sense, Ditto could kind of be his defensive cushion in case of setup. He can pull that out and kind of use that to his advantage. We do see the Tyranitar that could be designated as your special defensive wall if need be, but again, that's not using it properly. But Calm Mind Latios could be kind of your escape card as your special wall, but again, it's not necessarily using it as properly as intended. This team has good priority and good fast mons too, so I'm safely saying this is a pretty fast team in its own right. Yes, it has a few slow ones, but I don't think the gap is too extreme.
And on to that note, it has what call a good speed gap, and what's good about a league format is what you always want to have is you don't want to ever have all your mons too close to the same speed as each other, because that makes speed creeping your entire team too easy. You want to have a diverse speed set, so you want to have some base 60 speed mons, you want to have some base 70s, you want to have some base 80s, some base 120s. hundreds, etc. So it makes it so like your opponent has to speed creep and plot their EVs in a very, very specific way, making it so they can't always put all their EVs out. They can't always put all their EVs in attacks, and it just makes everything so like mental mind games in a way. So like the fact that he has like let's say Breloom, which what is Breloom? It's basically like 70 or 80. And he also has something like Gladios, which is chilling at base 110. Like he can't. He's trying to like, all right, so I'm gonna put so and so EV so I can see this Breloom, but I can't put. That makes it so I can't put nearly as much special defense in the HP, so I won't be able to eat up this hit from this on and so on.
Right, it makes it difficult for him basically.
Yep.
Um.
He has, good hazard removal. He has Defog Gladios, which is always reliable because of its speed. He has Rapid Spin on Fortress, and outside of that, there's not a whole lot. That's all you really need. One Defogger, one Rapid Spinner is like the go-to, the basic at least.
Yeah, it's pretty much following the formula. That's pretty much all I gotta really say about the team unless you have any other further points. Alright, so moving on to the number 4 seeded team in this draft list would be Mewventus. What a great pun.
And onto that note, if we mispronounce any of your team names, I can actually these people, except for Darude, actually Darude and the forgive me, the coach of the Las Vegas Vaporeons gambling Vaporeon is actually his name. Just met him in this league actually, so apologies for not knowing your name off rip. But yeah, I haven't heard any of you guys pronounce your team names, so if any of you botch these things or your names as well, because again, I haven't heard these things. So, our apologies.
Yeah,
in this draft, he drafted Landorus Therian, Jirachi, Rotom Wash, Arcanine, Tank, Florges, Buzzwole, Mammothswine, and his Z Crystal user is Hydreigon.
Yeah, looking at this team. Oh, were you trying to say something? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna lead into it.
Oh, sure, great. Yeah, on a fun note, I do know the trainer MexiDudePlays. I do know him among in this league as well as Roshi, and I just met iamNovaHawk right here. I do know that MexiDudePlays likes to take some classic like Gen 5, Gen 6 kind of esque looking mons that kind of fit the roles traditionally. And looking at his team here, I do like the way it's built, its structure. I like the Landorus. I think it's got the Intimidate as well as the Arcanine, so it's got a bit of leverage over there. I do like its Steel type being Jirachi, and I do enjoy how he has some priority. Also looking at the Mammothswine with the Ice Shard, which also grants him an immunity to the Electric type. He does have a lot of threats in this team as well, being the Hydreigon. If there's no fairies out there to stop him, it could be GG right there. Also looking at the Buzzwole is also pretty scary to look at too. And in terms of his walls, Florges is also is a pretty good wall, especially of course, and being a decent fairy type as well. Rotom Wash is good, of course, for utility and shenanigans. And looking at the Tangrowth, it is also a decent wall too, as well as having access to Regenerator. And the Smeargle is there with its Sketch. Kind of also a little bit of a wild card in there too.
Oh yeah, and onto his score the Firewater Grass. Just looking at Rotom Wash, Arcanine, and Tangrowth, very good Firewater Grass. I'd argue potentially the best in the league. Definitely a top 3 between the Volt Switch and the Recovery, like Tangrowth with since it's its ability Regenerator, which if you don't. Swaps out, it gains 1/3 of its health back, I believe, upon switching back in.
Yep.
Porcupine gets a recovery with Morning Sun, which is always good. His Dragon Steel Fairy Core is, again, arguably one of the best in the league between Hydreigon, Jirachi, and Florges. They literally cover each other's weaknesses damn near perfectly. Jirachi being weak to fire, ground, and ghost, I believe, as well as dark. Hydreigon literally resists all of those things. Florges also resists the fighting portion and the dark portion. Florges obviously being weak to steel and poison, being a pure fairy type, and those Jirachi obviously resist both of those and Hydreigon being weak to Fairy, and fighting. My thing is resisted by the Florges, Fairy is resisted by the Jirachi, as well as Ice, and obviously Dragon as well, which again, both are resisted by Jirachi. They cover each other's weaknesses almost completely perfectly right across the board. Dual Intimidate, it makes physical threats like Kieran Blacks or like the any other just physical monsters in the league, just makes them like a real obscurity. It makes you think twice of bringing to general. Buzzwole is Buzzwole, like Beast Boost with a Choice Scarf or just any kind of setup, and it's punching holes and everything. Mamoswine is Mamoswine. It's one of the most versatile runs in league format. Ice Ground is one of the best type combinations in the game. It's dual stab, covers literally almost everything. Smeargle, got to touch on a Smeargle. It has obviously access to almost every move in the game because of its sketch ability, which means it has setup, or it has on pass, it has hazards out the ass, it has whatever you need to have. Focus edge on it, make you lead, and then you're getting something off for sure.
Yeah.
Jirachi is real versatile with moves like Healing Wish, save your clutch bond late game. You just want to take it out right before it dies, and then send in something like the Landorus there, or like Z Crystal holding Hydreigon right before the end game. Get it and get it completely healed up, and then it's
yeah. That pretty much covers it all. I mean, also want to point out the usage of Wish on Florges can also come through a bit in the sense of the Healing Wish factor. And I'd like to also point out that this team does have access to extreme speed on the Arcanine. It's another point to give into the priority. And it is also a generally fast team, bar a few Mons being for example, the Rotom or the Tangrowth, notably. But that's pretty much all I got to really say about this team. I really like it, notably.
Yep, and one falling short item of the team is its lack of rapid spin. Naturally, I mean, if you want to be that guy and actually believe that Miracle would make a good rapid spinner, and just pop it out because then I mean, like, power to you, you can actually pull that off. But its only reliable hazard removal is the Crobat, which means for anything that it gets set up against, like its own up, odds are they're staying up. Unless you bring Crobat every game, and at that point it becomes predictable and easily dealt with. Another fall short of the team is how do I say this? Oh yeah, it also doesn't have Toxic Spikes any way to suck them up because it's only poison type. Crobat is flying and not off the ground. And being a team that is access to U-turn and Volt Switch and multiple Mons, which means it has the potential to be dipping in and out constantly without having reliable hazard removal. It makes it more detrimental than a positive to them. And it's a shame because they actually have relatively good hazard stacking potential with Stealth Rock on multiple Mons. Obviously, Smeargle being Smeargle gets access to every hazard in the game, which means
right.
They have the potential. They don't really have the means to follow up on it. They don't even have a spin blocker, so if someone wants to just get off a rapid spin, that's something that's easily done now.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure about this, but I think it's one saving grace is I'm not sure if it actually has access to this move or not. But if Landorus has access to Defog, which I am not sure if it does, that can compensate.
It's not.
It is not. Okay. Then everything you said is valid.
Landorus got defog, that thing would just be much more. Like, it's already considered a top tier threat in OU. Like, that thing had
Yeah, for sure.
Top 3 support in OU.
Right. Well, that pretty much concludes the Mewventus being at number 4. Now we jump into the top 3 of this league, and in the third position of the power rankings would be Muskoka Growlithes.
Oh yeah. The Muskoka. Sorry, there's 2 teams that have Muskoka as their city.
Yeah.
So I was about to read off the complete one, but apologies about that. Muskoka Growlithes is coached by Pokeplug, and their draft is the following. They have Sylveon, Celavance, Entei, Toxapex, Raikou, Kartana, Weavile, Gliscor, Heracross, Crocodile, and Mew as their Z Crystal holder.
So looking at this team right now, having Mew is obviously a huge benefit, especially having this in a league format. It has access to almost every move in the game, which means it is extremely hard to predict and is very easy to bring in and use to your advantage against your opponents. I really do like the combination of Sylveon and Salamence. They do cover each other very well. I do as well like the walls being Toxapex and Gligar. I do think they also complete each other decently well. And having Entei on this team, if you slap a Choice Band on it, as mentioned, it can definitely tear holes in the opponent if they can't have a proper way to stop that. I also find it interesting how this team has... Ooh, no, my mistake. I thought I saw 3 Dark types. That's my mistake. I like the axis of priority given to the Weavile, having Ice Shard, and Weavile being a very fast mon, and also having Knockoff is also interesting to have. We got some immunities to Electric with the Gligar and the Crocodile. The Heracross is nothing to sleep on as well. It can also tear some holes. And the Raikou with its fast speed, as well as access to Volt Switch, is good for the initiative as well.
Cortana being an arguable when it comes to Cortana is not something you want taking hits. It's a late game sweeper, comes in, or a good revenge killer, comes in after a mon goes down and takes up has minimal switch-ins next to its ridiculous base attack and speed. But between Sylveon and Salamence alone, like it's just not many things can take their dual stab, or the dual coverage, I mean to say. Sylveon is something that just forces switches, which also makes it a great support. Not many things you want to take a Pixelate Hyper Voice, which means it typically will get a free wish off if you're switching out on it. It's a good baton passer. It has setup, I believe, Calm Mind. Salamence obviously can hit from both sides of the spectrum, being physical or special, with again a wide move pool, being one of the most versatile dragon types in the game. Base 100 speed, so it's like, it's up there. It's relatively good. Cortana is Cortana, like, you know what it does: Beast Boost, Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Life Orb, whatever you want to do, and it hits hard. That's its thing. Onto its it's Fire, Water, Grass Core. Again, with Cortana being fall short between Entei, Toxapex, and Cortana. Entei and Toxapex, they're pretty well together. I mean, Choice Band Entei is just a monster. It launches holes. It's Sacred Fire. Flare. Toxapex, Toxic Spikes, Haze, Scald, Cover, Generator also, it gets magic cover. It's something that's hard to take out and kill. What else is there? I mean, Weavile is done. Weavile is, I actually wanted it. I was going to draft it as my last mon. I thought it was going to go unchecked, but then it went round 10, I believe. Like, almost right as it was coming back around to me.
Yeah.
But it's a dot. It gets kills. That's what it does, man. Like, put a Life Orb on it, or even a Choice Band, and that thing with Knockoff and Icicle Crash is just that dual stab. Ice and Dark. Ice in general, offensive ice types are slept on, especially in league format. They just punch holes in what are considered some of the most common types, like dragon types, like grass types, like, again, fire, water, grass, dragon, steel, fairy. Almost all those things just get popped by ice and dark stab.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to point out this team has a lot of momentum and a lot of usage of recovery and hazards as well, with the Toxapex, the Mew that could use pretty much anything it really wants. The Gligar with access to the Stealth Rocks. I do believe the Crocodile has access to some sort of hazard. Don't quote me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it gets Stealth Rocks.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Just to say, this team pretty much has a bit of everything pretty much covered. I don't see too many holes on this team, on paper at least.
Oh yeah, and what makes it another big thing I want to note is, again, it's well-crafted hazard stacking and Stealth Rocks. Mew being Mew, it also gets Stealth Rocks. I don't believe this team gets spikes, unfortunately, nor does it get does get Toxic Spikes. I see it drafted, it ends up being like used as a wall. It ends up being used just defensively rather than how it should be used offensively. I don't want to say should be used, like it's your Pokemon, do what you want. If it works, it works. But for one way or another, it always ends up just being that filler Pokemon, like, oh man, I need a special or defensive wall. Let me plop Mew in there, which, power to you if you choose to do that. But it gets so underutilized offensively. I just something similar like Mew as like a premier offensive. I'm just begging it. Like, I don't care if it's against me or against Roshi or against anyone. Just like use it to its full capabilities. Don't just use it as like
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Mew is that easily plugs in those holes your team can't necessarily do, and that often ends up being defensive.
Toxic, soft-boiled, psychic, knockoff, U-term, toxic, recover, like all these roosts, all these recover. Oh, I'm like, man, like you could have run out bulk up, baton pass.
Well, the fact that this, the fact that the Mew is the Z user, it may incite a more offensive approach of using the Mew. It might just make it a bit more oriented that way.
Oh yeah, and the hazard removal also, I forgot to note this.
Yeah.
You could call Glacier only reliable hazard removal, but Salamence also gets defog. Just to note, no one forget that it's semi-reliable in that it has base 100 speed, so if it gets out there, it's liable to get off the defog because of sheer speed. But it also is weak to the rocks that it's trying to get rid of, which is like a crippling aspect of it. But it's out there. I've used defog to sell it for a league format. It's not seen. It's unexpected.
Yeah, it's a decent plan B backup for removal, of course, and.
Pokemon that's like it's one of those things you look at, you're like, all right, I'm gonna taunt that thing. Right? If you look at Salamence, your first idea is not to taunt it. You give it back.
Exactly. And looking at that, that's our number 3rd ranked team. Then we can move on to the number 2 team, also from Muskoka, is the Muskoka Lycanrocs with Coach Roshi house.
Oh yeah, Roshi is so everyone know it is his league. He set it all up. So thanks to him for this. His draft is Durham Black, Excadrill, Clefable, Victini, Vaporeon, Shame, Greninja. I'll take this time right now. I want Azelfs as his Z-Crystal.
Yeah, so looking at this team, we do see definitely some very standout mons up the top of the power rankings here with the Kyurem Black, the Excadrill, and the Clefable. A beautiful beautiful Dragon Steel Fairy Core. Honestly, I think I would put this very near the top, if not the top of this league. Also looking at his Water, Fire, Grass Core. It has Victini in there, which is also a very, very big threat, something you can't really sleep on, as well as having lots of utility. It's got the Vaporeon or the Greninja, and the Shaman is also a very good grass type, of course. It does have access to a few good walls here with the Clefable, the Weezing, as well as the Mandibuzz. He does have access to the Jolteon with the Volt Switch momentum if needed, and the Azelf can be a suicide lead if needed, but it does have the Z Crystal, so that is also something to look at.
Oh yeah, and just to touch back on that Dragon Steel Fairy Core, man, like I would arguably call this the best Dragon Steel Fairy Core.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Kyurem Black, Excadrill, nothing is like getting past those three. It comes to like sheer like versatility. Like they cover each other's weaknesses perfectly. It's just, and Kyurem it's just pure and black. Excadrill is Excadrill. Clefable is just a fat blob of Clefable. And again, the Firewater Grass core. Victini is just nothing. It's like it's a pain to deal with. Pure and black is a pain to deal with. He had of like mods that are typically considered like first round picks. Like these things are usually things that are like, all right, I want this thing right now, and he somehow got. If I remember correctly, he got Victini like round 4 or 5. Like this thing, it went for a while. I don't know how it wasn't picked up before.
Wow.
It got to a point. The draft active went like 3 days, I believe. So like, I would have picked it up if I realized that it was on the market. It's one of those monkey shoes are gone.
Yeah, something you don't usually see happen. Yeah, it's usually something you don't see happen. So.
Yeah, man. Like it's a wild draft. He has good hazard stacking potential. He has Stealth Rock on Excadrill, Clefable. Azelfs gets Stealth Rocks. Is there I believe gets toxic spikes, but do not quote me on that. I believe does Karen Black get Roost?
I don't know actually. I could see it having it at the same time. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go ahead and safely say no as a safety point.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna go soft boiled with Clefable. Does Clefable get Wish? I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, Clefable gets Wish for sure.
Yeah, Wish. Obviously, Vaporeon gets Wish. I think, what is it? Shaman gets Healing Wish, which again, like I said before, is like an amazing last ditch effort. Mana Buzz, Roost, get reliable recovery when all the pain split. Like the Azelfs, Mana Buzz gets you, obviously. And when it has removal, I mean, obviously, Excadrill can be considered as over the game. When it comes to precedent, these top two are the same. Stealth Rock is, like I said prior, is one of the most common moves in the entire format. And Defog with Mana Buzz, which means he has really reliable, which is a great bonus when it comes to League Form. It's a really great bonus.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up entirely.
He doesn't have a spin blocker, so he doesn't have a ghost type, which kind of hinders the whole hazard stacking potential, but it's not always something that's needed. You know, if you take out their rapid spinner, if they just don't bring it, or you have a taunt mon, which he does have. He has Azelfs, Victini, Clefable, I believe gets taunt, Ninja gets taunt, so they could just stop a defogger if they choose not to bring the rapid spinner. And some of the teams in this league don't even have a rapid spinner, so props to him.
Yeah, his team is pretty well balanced all around, for the most part. I can't think of anything else to add. You really went over it like a champ there. Yeah, this I think that's about it for number 2. I mean, unless you have anything else to add. I mean, you went on a bit of a rant there. You got any more?
Like this is, in my opinion, undoubted like the number 2 team, arguably best. Like it could definitely be argued to be the best.
Well, we're going to go ahead and look at the best team. We're going to look at the best team right now, which would be the Chicago Granbulls, which happens to be your team.
Yep. And everyone hold their applause. And by hold their applause, I mean, don't try bias. I've gone over this, obviously with several different analysts, actually. I've had friends from different leagues go over it. Obviously, I have MorningLolz here with me. Gone over it with Roshi himself. I've gone over with other league members, and the consensus is that like I have what's considered, if not the best the team, top two between me and Roshi. Obviously, I'll just go over my draft. I was naming out loud. I'll try to let MorningLolz do as much analytical things he can do, because obviously it wouldn't be right for me to go all into depth with my team. After he's done talking, I'll try to give my little thoughts on it. I drafted Neolego, Caesar, Latias, Starmie, Infernape, Togekiss, Milotic, Hippowdon, Dhelmise, Silvally. Also note that in this league, similar to the GBA, when you draft Silvally, you get access to every form, every type, etc. And the Landorus Incarnate as my Z Crystal holder. I also take the time to note that this is not Sheer Force Landorus. It is just regular Sand Force Landorus, I believe the name is the ability.
Yep.
And on that, I'll just pass it to MorningLolz.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go over it a little briefly. I'd rather like afterwards your thought process through the picks, and I'm pretty sure you have more of an in-depth analysis. But just looking at this team right now, it generally looks like it's the most, how do I say, best overall all-around team. I can't find many faults in it, in the sense that your cores that consist of, for example, Silvally could be any type, but you do have the Scizor, you have the Latios, you have the Togekiss, which are very solid parts of the Dragon Steel core, Dragon Steel Fairy core. For your Fire, Water, Grass, Dhelmise, Silvally, that could be any type, of course. Melodic, Starmie, and Infernape, also very solid. Your team has a good range of speed and bulk as well. Looking at the Hippowdon, being a pretty bulky mon, and then Neolego, especially bulky, of course. You have good access to priority, being the Scizor, the Infernape, and I'm not sure if anything else does on that note. You do have good access to recovery. Just overall, the team it's well built, and you have many immunities as well. Looking at the Dhelmise, the Landorus, of course, which unfortunately is not the proper ability, but it would be too broken if it was, to be honest. But yeah, looking at this team, it looks as good as any top team in any draft, in my opinion.
When I was going into it, like my typical go-to play style is bulky offense. Like that's what I like. I like things that can eat up the hits, recover them back, and hit back even harder. Like Neolego, it's speedy and especially bulky out the ass like this thing, and it's also potentially, it gives me so many hazards. I mean, between Tiny Spikes and Stealth Rocks. Caesar being physically bulky as well, also getting recovery and roost. Technician hits like a truck with like priority bullet punch, or it has momentum building things like U-turn. Obviously, he has access to knock off. Latias being Latias again, especially bulky, access to roost or recover. I believe it has 110 special attack. Again, with moves like Calm Mind or items like Soul to a Life Orb. Nothing to sleep at all. Again, it also gets access to Healing Wish, which means a whole last-ditch effort thing I'm talking about with other teams. Obviously, it's a Dragon type as well, which makes this team, it makes the Dragon Steel Fairy team core rounded. Starmie is what I consider the best rapid spinner in the game. With rapid spin of base 110, 115 speed. Moves and abilities like Natural Cures means you can switch down the toxic spikes and then just recover off the damage as soon as get rid of the ailment as soon as it switches out. The ability is like analytical, so if you switch your Starmie in and then something switches out, it goes into the analytical ability, which means it's going to hit whatever comes in even harder. With already something that is 100 special stacks, nothing to laugh at. With moves like Scald and Psychic, great little stab. Infernape is Infernape, 180 base speed, if I remember correctly, 104 attack and special attack, and it's fire without the rock weakness because of the fighting. Moves like Close Combat, again, U-turn for momentum building. Abilities like Iron Fist, Flare Blitz, Life Orb. It also could be a lead with Focus Sash and Stealth Rocks. It's priority and Fake Out as well. Mach Punch, Vacuum Wave as well, if I remember correctly. Not a whole lot to say. Infernape is one of the most versatile gets good state. A Fairy Stab, it gets Dazzling Gleam, which is, it's not Moonblast, but it's good. Serene Grace and Thunder Wave, Air Slash Shenanigans, irrelevant. Roost for recovery, another massive thing. Gets set up with Nasty Plot. Life Orb, or hell, it has priority with Extreme Speed as well. It's bulky. It's really great, especially bulky wall. Milotic is Milotic. You all know what Milotic does. Pure water type. Can't really beat that. Bulky water types are like the name of the game. With moves like Recover, again, more recovery, which is another big thing in my play style. Haze to stop setup on it. Put a Flame Orb on it with Marvel Scale, and its physical bulk goes through the roof too. Scald, Ice Beam, it can do whatever you want it to do. We got Hippowdon. I needed more at this point. Hippowdon was actually my third to last pick. Obviously, I needed a more reliable physical defensive mon. Like I have a bunch like especially defensive balls between Neolago, Latias, Milotic, and Togekiss. I was like, I need a premier like base 100 or above physically bulky mon with recovery that's like reliable. Hippowdon with the 118 like HP and the 100 like whatever it is, 112 defensive. I was like, oh, this thing eats defensive hits for days. Like you're not gonna punch through this thing. And with Slack Off recovery, has Stealth Rocks, or Earthquake, it still hits hard on the physical side. Or Tox, or do whatever you want. It's like it's eating those hits. Delmise is Delmise. I was like, I just wanted a bulky grass type. It has 100 defense and 131 attack. Like, this thing hits hard. And it has 3 stab because of Steelworker. So that Anchor Shot is gonna punch holes in things. That Fairies, who cares about Fairies, man? I got a Delmise. Grass Stab is nothing to laugh at. It's underrated. Powerful. Thing's gonna hurt. It's a go types that also stop rapid spinners. And if it's another cross, it's rapid spin. So I have 2 rapid spinners on you for 3 defoggers. I guess hit it with a Phantom Force or a Shadow Claw or something, then pop it. Then I'm free to rapid spin on whatever I want. Popping a Assault Vest on that thing, and with its, again, 3 stabs and then rapid spin, so Power Whip, Anchor Shot, Shadow Force, and then rapid spin, and it's a premier mon. So Valley, obviously, it's gonna patch up any potential holes I have in any team. Obviously, it can be any time I want it to be. Another thing I drafted this Valley for is simply Parting Shot, which is an amazing move. It's like its momentum building, and it cripples your opponent at the same time, reducing their special attack and attack by 1 stage, which is amazing. It potentially gives me free setup on something like our Parting Shot on the Cure and Black, and I go into Caesar, and then at that point I get a free Swords Dance because Cure and Black isn't gonna be able to hit me hard enough to kill me, and if I get a Swords Dance, it's gonna want to switch out because it's not gonna want to take a Bullet Punch. So I get a free Swords Dance, get a Bullet Punch, or a U-Turn, or a Bug Bite, or whatever I want. And on the Landorus Eye, it's it's not Sheer Force, but this thing still hits like a truck. Get access to its move pool, and set up moves like Rock Polish or Calm Mind or Swords Dance, and this thing can just do whatever I want. Earth Powers, Earthquakes, Knockoffs, U-Turns, etc. It's versatile off the ass. It's still one of the best Pokemon in League format. It doesn't matter.
Well, that was a pretty perfect rundown, to be honest. That sums up the team. Yeah, you said it all, honestly. Really, really good team, and let's see how it works.
Yep. Week 1 is about to start soon. It's in the works right now. Team builders for this league should be going up on everyone's individual channels on Friday, and battles should be posted on the following Saturday, and that's how it's going to work. And on to that note, I guess I'll take this time to announce that my week 1 battle is against Darude. We'll see how that goes. Facing off against that Hoopa Unbound. But to wrap up this video, that was the week 0 power rankings. We have it's me, NovaHawk, and we'll have my Twitter down below and my channel linked. We'll try to link everyone's channel in the description below, as well as MorningLolz. Thank you for the commentary as well. Very much appreciated.
Oh, thanks for having me.
That's not a problem. That was the post-draft analysis going in depth with every team, and we'll catch you later.
All right, peace.